Mark Rogers TV with you once again after watching Texas A&M head football coach Kevin Sumlin at the podium at SEC Football Media Days. This guy is mighty impressive. There is certainly a reason why, as a head coach for just 6 years at the major college level, he's earned National College Football Coach finalist status three times in 6 years. Took a team that had never played in the SEC, takes that program into the SEC for the first time in school history, and finishes 6-2 in the SEC, 11-2 overall, finishes with a number 5 national ranking. Met all the doubters, all the questions about whether he could make that transition and his team could make that transition and play in the best conference in America. And he got it done and starts preseason top 5 or top 10 this season. First of all, the guy's smart. He graduated with a criminal justice and law enforcement degree at Purdue University. Then he started his coaching track. He went to Washington State and Purdue and Minnesota, Oklahoma, back to Texas A&M as well. He learned and took the best from a lot of solid football guys like Glenn Mason and Joe Tiller and Bob Stoops certainly and R.C. Slocum. Then he goes to Houston and he sets Conference USA on fire. Houston was down as a football program. He implemented his offensive system and they rocked Conference USA. They had that 12-1 season that finished with the Conference USA championship game loss, or the Cougars possibly could have inched into a BCS championship game. So still 12-1, had another 11-win season at Houston, really brought that program way beyond its capacity at that point. We've seen what happened last season without Kevin Sumlin at Houston when they won 5 or 6 football games. Then he comes to Texas A&M, and in year one, he's got the daunting task of going into the SEC against the best athletes in America and the best defenses, most notably. And he takes that offense, and I certainly was a doubter as well, but he takes that spread formation, certainly with the help of the quarterback, Johnny Manziel, winning the Heisman, but 45 points per game in the SEC, 585 yards per game in the SEC, both led the SEC in total offense and scoring per game. Let's take into account that those numbers include the Cotton Bowl win against Oklahoma and also all the non-conference games, but still led the SEC in points and yards. First of all, as we said, this guy is a very smart guy and he knows football. I think that's a very, very important selling point there in building a football program. And of course, being a football coach, you got to know football, and this guy certainly is at the cutting edge of offensive football. I think the other important aspect of his coaching approach is that he understands structure, he understands organization. When you are the CEO in college football, man, you are a powerful, powerful guy. You've got it all on your shoulders. You have to know how to build a structure, build a program. You've got to have a sound philosophy that you believe in when it comes to building an offense, a defense, a special teams, building a coaching staff, leading your team, messaging to the team. How do you do that? How do you discipline? How do you rein in those guys? How do you work with them? How do you love them? How do you embrace them? How do you scold them? How do you work with the athletic department? How do you work with the administration? How do you get them to raise money and raise funds? How do you fill that stadium? How do you work with the media? All these things are premeditated. All these things are structured and thought through by the best of them, and that includes Kevin Sumlin. The other third thing that he does very well, in addition to the football knowledge and the structure and the foundation that he's built at Texas A&M, is relating to the student athlete. And certainly this is a guy that seems like he's hip enough that he can relate to the student athlete of 2013, but at the same time, he earns their respect. He is very poised, very impressive at the podium. When you listen to this guy talk, he's not one of these coach speak guys that says everything that is right out of the manual, the coaching 101, dealing with the media manual, but at the same time, he's not shooting from the hip. He understands where to draw the line, where to be personable, where to explain his thoughts, but at the same time, he's not going to let it all go, and he's not going to speak and shoot from the hip and say everything that comes from his brain. He is not like that. He is able to speak articulately without letting out too much. He says the right things, but is still interesting to listen to. This guy is a really good guy, and I believe he's a solid football guy. And again, very impressive, very poised. And I think his dealing with Johnny Manziel, we're going to see it unfold in 2013 because things are going to be more difficult in the locker room because Manziel's got all the attention and he's going to have to deal with teammates. And if he has a bad game, and he's going to have a bad game in this league, especially with these defensive coordinators scheming all winter against him, then Kevin Sumlin's going to have to deal with that. He's going to have to deal with his team. He's going to have to deal with Johnny Manziel. He's going to have to deal with the media. He's going to have to say the right things and do the right things. I think it's no coincidence that Johnny Manziel did not tweet after Kevin Sumlin dealt with him. Johnny Manziel, like it or not, said a lot of things today dealing with his celebrity, his off-season activity, and you may or may not agree with the way he approached that. He says he's made some mistakes. He's 20 years old. He may or may not change, but he's growing up as a football player and a man. But I believe Sumlin at this point is dealing with it very well. He certainly, at the podium, emphasized the team. He didn't skirt the issue of Johnny Manziel in the off-season, off-the-field activity, but at the same time, he certainly didn't give you too much. He answered the questions. He dealt with it. He talked about Johnny Manziel needing to grow up and mature as a man and a football player and how he would help him do that. Kevin Sumlin, Texas A&M head football coach. Yes, it's going to be difficult for him. It's not all going to be 11-2 seasons in the SEC because there are a lot of great football programs to deal with. But he's off to a good start. He's built a foundation. He's got a great recruiting class coming in 2013. And get this, no Georgia, no Florida, no South Carolina from the East on Texas A&M's schedule. I don't like it because you got Texas A&M, one of the big players in the SEC, and they're not playing the top 3 teams in the other division, Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. And wouldn't it be fun to watch Jadeveon Clowney trying to chase down Johnny Football? All right, that's our take on Texas A&M, Kevin Sumlin, and a little bit on Johnny Football. Need to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.